I'm just somebody that doesn't like being lied to. It does feel like this was the plan all along. Why didn't you just say that up front? It's not, you didn't have to lie to the people to get your way.
After growing tension between Camilla and Prince William over key royal decisions, new controversy began to surround Camilla. With attention shifting toward William's rising role, King Charles's reign appears to face quiet internal adjustments that are not openly explained. Has King Charles already handed final power to William? Join us as we uncover the truth behind this revelation. The battle for acceptance inside the royal circle. Camilla's story inside the royal world did not begin with a crown. It began with a long shadow that followed her everywhere she went. Even before any official title, she was already a subject of debate, discussion, and divided opinion. Some people saw her as a steady presence in King Charles's life, while others could not move past the history that surrounded her name. This split feeling never fully disappeared, no matter how many years passed. Over time, efforts were made to place her into a more accepted position within royal life. Her public duties increased. Her appearances became more structured. Her image was carefully shaped to show calmness, duty, and loyalty to the crown. Yet, even with all these efforts, acceptance did not come fully. Instead, it came in pieces. Some welcomed her presence, while others quietly resisted it. This silent division followed her into every royal event. Inside palace walls, the discussion was even more delicate. There were moments when senior voices reportedly questioned how her future role should be defined. The question was not only about personality or history, but about title and meaning. As time moved forward, a major decision was made that changed everything. Instead of being known as Princess Consort, she was officially given the title Queen Consort. This moment carried weight inside the royal system. It was not just a change of words, it was a change of perception, expectation, and status. For some inside the palace, this decision brought clarity and stability. For others, it raised quiet concern about how far tradition was being adjusted. Every title in the monarchy carries meaning, and this one felt especially significant because of the history attached to it. As Camilla stepped into her role as Queen Consort, her responsibilities grew. She was seen more often in official engagements, standing beside King Charles with increasing visibility. Her presence became a constant part of royal life, not only as a companion, but as a figure representing continuity within the monarchy. Yet, this visibility also meant that she was constantly under comparison, not only with expectations of the role, but with tradition itself. Supporters of the decision viewed her position as necessary for stability. They believed the monarchy needed consistency, and that her role supported the king during a time of change. On the other hand, critics saw something different. To them, the shift in title felt like a rewriting of established structure, something that should have remained untouched. This contrast created a quiet tension that never fully left the environment around her. It followed her into meetings, ceremonies, and official duties. Even when everything appeared calm on the surface, there was always an underlying awareness that her position carried both authority and controversy at the same time. How long can quiet tension remain hidden before it begins to change everything around it? The coronation aftermath. The coronation of King Charles was meant to mark a clear new beginning for the monarchy. It was a moment filled with tradition, ceremony, and a sense of completion for a long journey to the throne. For a short time, everything appeared settled. The focus was on unity, order, and the smooth continuation of royal duties. But very quickly after the ceremony ended, attention shifted away from celebration and moved towards something more complex. Inside the palace, the rhythm of daily work did not slow down. Instead, it changed shape. New responsibilities had to be managed, and adjustments had to be made as the monarchy settled into its next phase. What seemed like a completed transition on the surface was, in reality, the beginning of a quieter internal shift. At the same time, conversations outside official walls began to circle around one central theme. Camilla's position in the new structure of the monarchy became a subject of continued discussion. Her role as Queen Consort placed her close to the center of royal life, and this visibility naturally drew attention. The coronation did not close those discussions. Instead, it seemed to reopen them in a new form, with even more focus on how influence was distributed inside the royal household. Why did her presence continue to draw so much attention even after the coronation was complete? And what made her role feel more central than expected in the new structure? Inside the palace, observers reportedly noticed something important. Camilla was not only present in ceremonial duties, but also increasingly visible in areas linked to planning and coordination. These were not positions of formal authority, but they placed her closer to decision-making environments than before. Her involvement in organizing schedules, managing communication flow, and coordinating royal engagements became more consistent. She was not described as making final decisions, but as being close to where decisions were shaped. This gradual shift did not happen suddenly. It developed step by step as the monarchy adjusted to a new routine after the coronation. Every institution requires coordination, and the royal household was no different. As King Charles took on his role as sovereign in a fully active sense, the structure around him naturally adapted. Camilla's presence in these spaces became part of that adjustment. At the same time, another important change began to appear. King Charles was observed reducing his public workload more often than many had initially expected. This was not presented as a withdrawal, but rather as a careful balancing of duties. Still, it created a noticeable shift in how responsibilities were shared within the royal system. As the king adjusted his schedule, other members of the royal family began to take on more visible roles. The balance of duties slowly started to spread across different figures within the institution. This did not happen through sudden announcements or dramatic changes. Instead, it unfolded quietly, through gradual redistribution of responsibilities that reflected the needs of the moment. Within this environment, Camilla's position became more noticeable. Her proximity to the king meant that she was often present during key transitions of daily royal work. She became part of the environment where decisions were prepared, even if she was not the one making them. Meanwhile, palace aides reportedly had to adapt quickly to these changes. The flow of communication, planning of engagements, and coordination of duties all required careful alignment. As responsibilities shifted, even slightly, the internal system had to adjust to maintain stability. Nothing was described as breaking or collapsing, but the structure was clearly evolving. By the time the initial period after the coronation settled, it was no longer just about ceremony or tradition. It had become about how the monarchy functioned day by day. Camilla's presence in key areas of coordination, combined with King Charles's more selective workload, created a new working rhythm inside the palace. However, a single news from the palace was about to ruin Camilla's years of planning. The diagnosis that changed everything. Everything inside the royal household changed the moment the news of King Charles's cancer diagnosis and treatment became part of the palace reality. It was not a loud change, and it did not come with public disruption inside the royal system. But behind the formal tone of official statements, the atmosphere inside the palace became noticeably different. The message presented to the outside world remained steady. It focused on reassurance, continuity, and the king's determination to continue his duties. On the surface, nothing appeared unstable, but inside the royal environment, where daily routines are closely observed and carefully managed, there was a different picture forming. The pace of work began to adjust. The demands of duty were still present, but they were being handled with more care and more distribution. Insiders reportedly describe a quieter shift that followed the diagnosis. The king was still involved in state matters, but his energy and availability were no longer constant in the same way. This created a need for more delegation, more planning, and more reliance on those closest to him in daily royal life. Responsibilities that were once handled directly began to spread across trusted members of the household. Camilla's role during this period became more visible. She was seen more frequently alongside King Charles during public engagements, standing beside him not only as support but as a steady presence during a time of increased pressure. Her visibility was not sudden, but it became more consistent. She accompanied him to more events, appeared in more coordinated duties, and represented continuity in moments where stability mattered most. As the king's schedule adapted to his treatment and recovery process, Camilla's responsibilities also expanded in practical ways. She was increasingly part of engagements that required presence and reassurance. Her involvement created a sense of continuity during moments when the king could not be everywhere at once. This did not change her official position, but it changed how her role was experienced inside the system. At the same time, another important shift was taking place. Prince William began to appear more frequently in state functions that carried greater institutional weight. His presence was not limited to ceremonial appearances. Instead, he was increasingly involved in roles that connected directly to the structure of governance within the monarchy. These were responsibilities traditionally associated with the direct working office of the sovereign. This development marked a quiet but important adjustment in how duties were shared. William was no longer only seen as the future of the monarchy. He was becoming an active part of its present functioning. His involvement grew steadily, shaped by the need for continuity and stability during a period when the king's workload required careful management. Inside the palace, this created a new balance. The monarchy now appeared to operate through three central figures, each carrying different but connected roles. King Charles remained the sovereign and central authority. Camilla became a consistent presence of support and continuity beside him. Prince William emerged as a rising operational figure, increasingly involved in the structure of future leadership and present responsibilities. This arrangement did not replace the monarchy's existing structure. Instead, it reshaped how responsibilities were distributed within it. Each role carried weight, but the way they interacted became more layered and more sensitive. Decisions, appearances, and duties were no longer concentrated in a single rhythm. They were shared across a system adjusting to new realities. But who becomes in charge when responsibility is no longer centered in one place, but shared across a changing balance of power? William's rise. Prince William's position inside the royal household begins to change in a way that feels gradual at first, but becomes more noticeable with time. He is still the heir, still the future king, but his role starts to feel less distant and more active. What was once a waiting position slowly turns into something more present, more involved, and more central to the daily functioning of the monarchy. This shift does not happen through sudden announcements. Instead, it grows through repeated involvement in important moments behind palace doors. Prince William begins attending more sensitive briefings than before. These are not ordinary meetings. They are discussions connected to the internal structure of the monarchy, planning, coordination, and the long-term stability of the institution. At first, his presence in these spaces is seen as supportive, but as time passes, his involvement becomes more consistent. He is no longer only observing or being updated. He is now part of conversations where direction and planning are shaped. This change slowly adjusts how people inside the palace view his role. Alongside this growing involvement, Prince William's focus becomes clearer. He is described as being deeply interested in modernizing the monarchy. This does not mean changing its identity, but refining how it operates. There is an emphasis on clarity, structure, and reducing confusion in how responsibilities are shared. His approach is often linked to the idea of strengthening stability during uncertain moments. As King Charles continues to manage health challenges and adjust his workload, questions naturally begin to form within the system. The monarchy must continue to function smoothly, even when the king is not fully active every day. Inside the palace, discussions reportedly begin about whether Prince William should take on expanded decision-making authority earlier than originally expected. This is not framed as replacing the king. Instead, it is about ensuring continuity and reducing pressure on the central role of the sovereign. The idea is connected to practicality, not change of position. As these discussions develop, a new dynamic begins to form inside the royal environment. Camilla's role remains closely tied to the present functioning of the monarchy. She is seen as a steady presence beside King Charles, maintaining continuity in daily duties and engagements. Her influence is connected to stability in the current moment, especially during periods when the king's schedule requires support and adjustment. At the same time, Prince William represents something different. His presence is increasingly associated with structure, planning, and the future direction of the monarchy. He is not only preparing for what comes next, but also becoming involved in how the present is managed in a more structured way. This creates two different points of influence within the same system. Inside the palace, courtiers allegedly begin to describe this situation in terms of balance. There is a sense that two forms of influence are developing at the same time. One is rooted in continuity and immediate support. The other is focused on long-term structure and future authority. These two directions do not openly clash, but they exist alongside each other in a delicate balance. This balance is sometimes described as a kind of dual gravity inside the monarchy. One pull comes from the present, where daily duties, appearances, and immediate responsibilities must be maintained. The other pull comes from the future, where planning, structure, and long-term stability are being shaped. Both are important, but they do not always move in the same direction. Inside this environment, questions begin to circulate quietly among those close to the royal household. Who holds the most influence when the system is divided between present support and future direction? The rift forms. The atmosphere inside the royal household begins to change in a subtle but noticeable way. It is not a loud conflict. It does not appear in public confrontation. Instead, it grows quietly, through small adjustments, careful conversations, and unspoken differences in approach. What begins to form is not a visible break, but a gradual tension around influence, authority, and the space each role occupies inside the monarchy. According to palace speculation, this shift starts with informal boundaries that are no longer as clear as before. The structure of the royal household depends heavily on understanding who is involved in which decisions, even when those decisions are not officially announced. Over time, these boundaries begin to feel less fixed and more flexible than expected. Camilla is believed to maintain strong access to King Charles in his private working environment. This includes daily planning, scheduling, and coordination of engagements that shape the rhythm of royal duties. Her presence in these spaces is steady and closely tied to the king's immediate routine. She is not positioned as a decision-maker in the formal sense, but her proximity to the center of daily operations makes her influence noticeable in the flow of events. At the same time, a different direction begins to form around Prince William. His role, tied to his position as heir, starts to be associated with clearer structural authority. Within his circle, there is reportedly a growing push for defined responsibility, especially in areas connected to long-term planning and institutional stability. The idea is not about removing existing roles, but about clarifying how authority is structured as the monarchy continues to evolve under changing circumstances. Why does clarity and authority suddenly become so important at this stage? This is where the tension starts to take shape. It is not open disagreement. It is something more controlled and quieter. A procedural struggle begins to form around questions such as who approves certain decisions, when those approvals are made, and how different offices interact with each other. These are not emotional conflicts. They are administrative ones, but they carry deeper meaning beneath the surface. As this situation develops, Camilla's continued visibility in public engagements adds another layer to the growing tension. She often appears beside King Charles during important events, and in many cases, she is the one addressing questions related to his health and workload. Her presence is steady, and it reinforces a sense of continuity around the king during a period that requires careful balance. For some observers inside the palace environment, this visibility is seen as reassurance. However, there is another interpretation within certain circles. Some allegedly view this growing visibility as something that extends beyond traditional expectations of a queen consort's role, not as a challenge to authority, but as a presence that becomes closely linked to areas where long-term planning and succession-related structure are normally handled with more separation. As these differing interpretations develop, the internal environment becomes more sensitive. Every appearance, every engagement, and every statement carries more weight than before. The same action can be seen in different ways, depending on perspective, which adds to the quiet complexity inside the palace. At the same time, Prince William's role continues to evolve in parallel. His increasing involvement in structured briefings and institutional planning brings him closer to the operational side of the monarchy. This naturally creates moments where responsibilities begin to overlap with other areas of royal work, even if unintentionally. Behind closed doors, staff reportedly begin making careful adjustments to avoid these overlaps. Scheduling becomes more precise. Briefings are separated more clearly. Communication channels are refined to ensure that each role operates within its intended space. These changes are not dramatic, but they are deliberate. Can quiet structure alone prevent tension from growing when influence is shared in different ways? As these adjustments continue, the sense of a divided flow inside the palace becomes more noticeable. Camilla's influence is closely tied to the present functioning of royal life, where daily continuity and immediate responsibilities are managed. William's growing role is increasingly connected to structure, planning, and the long-term direction of the monarchy. Neither role is described as replacing the other. Instead, they exist side by side, but in ways that do not always naturally align. This creates a space where coordination becomes essential, and where even small differences in approach require careful handling. However, after a major decision inside the palace, one figure was quietly pushed back from the spotlight to allow the other to rise. But who is it, William or Camilla? A decision no one expected publicly. Inside the royal household, there are moments that do not reach the outside world, yet they carry great weight behind closed doors. One of those moments is said to have taken place during a private high-level meeting involving King Charles, Prince William, and senior advisors. It was not a public event, and there were no announcements before or after it. Still, according to palace speculation, what happened inside that room began to shift the direction of internal royal structure in a quiet but serious way. The meeting is described as focused, careful, and deeply important. It was not about ceremony or appearances. It was about how the monarchy continues to function during a period where the king's health requires ongoing treatment and adjusted workload. Every word spoken in that room was reportedly connected to the future rhythm of royal operations. One detail that stands out in accounts of the meeting is Camilla's absence from key portions of the discussion. She is said to have been present in the wider environment of royal work, but not included in certain critical sections of this specific conversation. Inside palace circles, this becomes a point of quiet speculation, not because of conflict, but because of what her absence represents in such an important setting. Why was she not present during parts of a discussion that shaped future structure? And what does absence mean inside a system where presence often reflects influence? The central focus of the meeting is reportedly described as future operational authority. This refers to how royal duties are managed during periods when the king is not able to carry full responsibility every day. It is not about removing authority from the monarch. Instead, it is about ensuring that decisions, approvals, and coordination continue smoothly during treatment periods and beyond. Within this discussion, Prince William is allegedly identified as the most suitable figure for structured decision continuity. This does not mean a change in title or formal position, but a recognition of his increasing involvement in operational matters. His role is framed around stability, planning, and ensuring that royal functions remain consistent even when adjustments are needed at the top level. As this idea is discussed, the tone of the meeting is said to remain serious and careful. Nothing is rushed. Every point is considered in detail. The structure of the monarchy is not treated as something to be changed quickly, but as something that must be supported through gradual and stable planning. It is during this stage of the meeting that a significant development is believed to take shape. According to palace rumors, King Charles begins to formalize a shift in responsibility. This is not described as abdication or stepping away from the throne. Instead, it is a structured delegation of final operational oversight during specific periods of reduced availability. This means that while the king remains sovereign, certain layers of decision flow are adjusted so that continuity is maintained through other trusted structures. The focus is on keeping the monarchy stable and responsive, even when the king's workload must be carefully managed. This shift is described as careful, measured, and designed to protect stability rather than change authority. Still, even small adjustments at this level carry meaning inside the royal system, where structure and responsibility are closely connected. How does a system change when authority is not removed, but shared in a new way? And what happens when structure begins to adapt quietly, without public explanation? Camilla's response during this period is also described as significant within palace accounts. She is said to express concern about the idea of reduced influence in areas where she has been closely involved in supporting the king's daily functioning. Her position is reportedly rooted in the belief that her role remains important for the king's immediate stability, especially during periods of demanding workload and recovery. This creates a moment of tension inside the meeting, not open conflict, but a difference in perspective. On one side, there is a focus on structured continuity through defined roles. On the other, there is a focus on personal support and daily stability that comes from long-standing involvement beside the king. The meeting eventually comes to an end without any public announcement. There is no statement, no confirmation, and no visible sign of change outside palace walls. Everything remains internal, handled within the structure of royal confidentiality. However, according to insider speculation, something important has already shifted. The internal hierarchy of the monarchy is believed to have changed in principle, not through formal declaration, but through agreed understanding among those present in the discussion. This means that even if everything appears the same on the surface, the way responsibilities are understood inside the system has begun to adjust. Decisions, approvals, and operational flow are now being viewed through a slightly different structure than before. Camilla continues her role beside the king, maintaining presence and support in daily royal life. Prince William continues to take on increasing involvement in structured responsibilities. King Charles remains the central authority, while also managing a system that is adapting to his health needs and workload adjustments. The monarchy still stands unified on the outside. Duties continue, engagements proceed. The formal structure remains unchanged, but inside there is a quiet reorganization of how responsibility is understood and shared. How long can a monarchy remain visually unchanged when its internal structure has already begun to move in a new direction? The quiet transfer. After the private meeting, nothing changes in a loud or public way. There are no announcements, no clear signals. The royal household continues its daily duties in the same calm and formal rhythm. From the outside, everything still looks stable and unchanged. But inside the palace, small shifts begin to appear in how things are handled. These changes are quiet, but they slowly build a new pattern in how the monarchy functions. One of the first changes is in decision flow. Prince William becomes more closely linked with final review authority on important matters, especially those connected to long-term planning and official communication. His role is not about replacing anyone. It is about being more involved in the final stage, where decisions are shaped before they are confirmed. This happens gradually. With time, his presence in these review stages becomes more consistent. It creates a new rhythm where his input is part of how decisions reach completion. At the same time, Camilla continues her role as queen consort beside King Charles. She remains present in royal duties and daily engagements. Her position is steady and visible, and she continues to support the king during his work and schedule. However, the way her influence is described begins to change slightly. Instead of being seen as part of decision structure, her role is more often framed as supportive. She remains close to the king, but her position is connected more to stability in the present than to structured authority. King Charles remains the sovereign and central figure. His authority does not change, but his way of working becomes more structured. More responsibilities are shared through organized steps, rather than handled directly in every case. Because of this, decision-making begins to move through clearer channels inside the royal system. Some stages involve William more directly, especially in planning and coordination. This does not reduce the king's position, but it changes how decisions are prepared and processed. Camilla continues her supportive role. William continues to grow into a more structured operational position. The king remains at the top, but the system beneath him begins to adjust in how responsibilities are shared. From the outside, the monarchy still looks the same. Duties continue, engagements take place, the structure appears unchanged, but inside, the flow of responsibility is slowly becoming different. Aides reportedly begin to describe this as a rebalanced monarchy, not because of any official announcement, but because of how work is now distributed in practice. The crown still sits in the same place, but the movement beneath it is different. What does it mean when a system does not change its form, but changes how it works inside? And how does stability remain when responsibility starts to spread in new ways? Camilla remains beside the king. William becomes more involved in structured authority. King Charles continues as the central sovereign figure. But inside the palace, the way power moves has begun to settle into a new pattern. And as this quiet transfer continues, one question remains. What happens when everything still looks the same, but nothing functions exactly the same anymore? If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.